welcome back to the DeeBrief channel. I'm Chase Alfasi. I'm with Marnie from Kanga TV, and this is the Oppo preview for Melbourne's Round 2 clash against North Melbourne. Marnie, welcome to the channel. How are you going?
I'm good, Chase. Thank you so much for having me. How are you going?
I'm going very well, keen for this week. Talk to us just briefly about Kanga TV. It's a new project of yours?
Yeah, so Kanga TV I launched in October 2024, so it's still relatively new in the AFL fan channel space, but the response has been amazing so far. I've been doing North Melbourne content of some kind for over 10 years now, but it's been a very long time since I've had my own brand. And I decided at the end of last season that I really saw a gap in the market for North Melbourne content that was sort of short to medium term, visual. There are no fan channels that cover North Melbourne. There's plenty of podcasts and they all do a great job, and I don't want to, they've got it covered. I don't need to be another podcast. So just trying to do something a little bit different. And here I am. And things have been going really well, and the response, like I said, has been great. And it's been awesome meeting not only the people that make North Melbourne so special, but other creators in the space, and being able to share the North Melbourne love as much as I can.
That's great. If I was a North Melbourne fan, which I am definitely an enthusiast, what should I be expecting from Kanga TV this year?
Look, with Kanga TV, you get a lot of the usual stuff. It's the previews, it's the reviews. I do have a segment called The Final Word, which is a little game day chat, I suppose, and just like a little bit of a pep talk before we head in to the game of the round. The one thing that probably sets Kanga TV apart is the interview element of the channel. So I've interviewed some current players, past players, fans as well, and it's sort of just looking into the human of football. I think the media cycle, and I know we're both contributing to it, but the media cycle is so saturated and it's so ferocious that it can sometimes dehumanize the industry a little bit, and we do have these moments that really sober us up and really remind us that at the end of the day, at the core, we're all people just indulging in our love for AFL. So whether it's the players or the coaches or the fans, I'd like to bring that human element and share the stories of the people that make our club so great. So that is probably the difference and my favourite part of Kanga TV.
Love it. Let's talk a bit about North. Not really much of a sample size off just the one game against the Dogs, but how much did you make of that game?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I think the noise externally and the response externally to our performance on Saturday night was relatively positive. And look, element of that is true. We played the Dogs in round 23 last year and we got pumped by 96 points. So to bring that into a 16-point loss on Saturday night is obviously the more flattering margin of the two, and we're a lot closer to where we want to be. But on the flip side, internally, I think there was probably a bit of unrest, and I think a lot of fans were disappointed with the result. I definitely was in the moment, and it doesn't sit comfortably with me that we lost the game, and I'm not going to sit here and say it was an honourable loss because I don't believe in that at all. The Bulldogs had a number of key personnel out, and I know they were a final side last year, and I know they obviously have a very solid system, and they did have key players in each line along the ground that are part of their not just best 23, but some of their best players, likes of Norton and Darcy, Dale and Richards. Like, these guys were all still present, and they did play a really big role on Saturday night. So I do think we should have won that game. I think going into it, we expected it, and after quarter time, we probably played the game majority on our terms, but it was sort of too little too late. All you can really do is process it and just focus on the following week. There's no point dwelling on it. As you said, it's a small sample size. It's just one game. But I would hope that hasn't stunted our confidence heading into Sunday's clash.
Yeah. From my view, I was watching the game. I was kind of flicking between the Collingwood-Port game. The AFL didn't want to stagger the times, which was pretty poor. But I felt like LDU was probably subpar. McKercher was average, and even Harry Sheasel, he had 31 touches, but probably below his standard. Do you take the fact that you only lost by 16 points, do you take confidence from that, knowing that you've got upside?
Yeah, to an extent. There's definitely a lot of players that looked underdone, as you said, and I think that I would expect all of them to be able to bounce back. Even someone like Luke Parker, who we brought in for his experience and leadership, probably wasn't on song. Neither was Caleb Daniel. All of them had a lot of the ball, as you mentioned, but probably none of them really hitting the mark that we would really expect. I would have thought that mentally going into that game, they would have been fired up enough that really shouldn't have been an excuse. But on the flip side, again, we've only won a handful of games over the past few seasons. So it's easier in theory when it's said than actually in reality. So look, I think, you just sort of take what you can from it and then, look ahead and just expect that they'll improve next week, or this week, I should say, on Sunday.
Yeah, fair enough. Did you catch any of the Dees game against the Giants?
I didn't, but I did catch the score at the end, and I did sort of see there was a little bit of back and forth. It looked like it was a pretty
Yeah.
entertaining contest, and I think you probably would have been disappointed, but also happy with what was presented on the park.
Yeah, I mean, I think all Melbourne fans were just gutted and we're pretty sick of losing the close ones. But in terms of like the effort, you couldn't fault it at all. Our pressure was there. Like we had 6 debutants and we matched it against GWS, who were probably one of the flag fancies. So pretty confident going into this week against North, given that they're probably not at the Giants level, and we were playing in torrential weather. Now under the roof at Marvel, should be able to tidy up, but I'd be really disappointed if we dropped this game, because they would just sort of, add on to the hurt of Sunday. So let's talk about some of the matchups with North Melbourne. First of all, Jackson Archer's ban has been upheld, and I believe North are not taking it. They're not going to appeal that one again.
Yeah.
Last year, he kept Bailey Fritsch very quiet. Do you think that's going to be a big loss down back?
Oh, absolutely. Our entire backline is completely under siege. It is already the shakiest part of our game. To go in without Arch, who's been our best lockdown small defender we've had for quite some time. Griffin Logue is added to that as well. He will definitely miss this week, if not more games. And Charlie Comben goes in with a test, so he's sort of in a race against the clock to get his ankle right ahead of Sunday's game. So there's two of our best defenders, and then Charlie Comben potentially adds to a third, and 3 players who would all be considered in North's best 23. It's a very frightening prospect, but we think that there's a lot more depth this year than we've had for quite some time. And so we're just going to have to figure out a way to cover our losses. But yes, to answer your question, it's a scary prospect going without Arch, because he's definitely been an extremely reliable lockdown defender, small defender, particularly in the second half of last season. That game that he did play against Bailey Fritsch was probably his breakout game, to be honest. And he really announced himself on the competition after that.
And I don't think many Melbourne fans are going to be familiar with some of the fringe North Melbourne players, but if you put your match committee hat on, who do you think comes in for Griffin Logue and Jackson Archer?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So I think the obvious one for me replacing Logue would be Callan Dawson. So Callan Dawson was taken at the mid-season pick in 2022. He is older, he's in his late 20s, albeit he only played about 15 or 16 senior games. He hasn't really put a foot wrong, to be honest, Callan Dawson. He played majority of the first half of last season and then got suspended and then couldn't make his way back into the side permanently, which was a bit of a shame for him. I do really like what he has to offer, and I think he'd probably be the best choice to bring in, given that Charlie Comben, while he had a great season last year in defence, he can be a little bit hit and miss. And it's only his second year down in defence. So, and then he might not even play. So that could be an irrelevant discussion in 48 hours time. In terms of Jackson Archer, we have a couple of options. The first option would be to bring in Darcy Tucker. He was the sub in the game against the Dees, so you could bring him into the side and he could play that lockdown role. Or the other option is you move Luke McDonald into that role, and then you potentially bring in the likes of Riley Hardiman. So Riley Hardiman he's only played 3 games. He made his debut last year for North. He's definitely come on in leaps and bounds in the off season, and he does have the ability to be an attacking element in our defence, but he also can be that lockdown defender if we need. That would be my preference, would be to bring in Riley Hardiman. I've been really hot on Riley for a very, very long time, basically the whole off season, just ready to see him in action. So again, we'll just have to wait and see. It really depends if we opt for experience or not. I think Charlie Comben playing or not playing will be a really big key to that, because I think if Charlie Comben misses as well, we might opt just to balance it out with a little bit more experience.
Yeah, I think that's going to be potentially where the game is won and lost. It's probably the weakness of both sides, Melbourne's forward line and potentially North's backline, which is going to be undermanned. Daniel Turner, I assume, will come in for Aiden Johnson, who was suspended on debut. We don't have Cozzy Pickett, who I believe has a pretty good record against North, averages 2.2 goals and 1.5 goal assists as well. So I guess there's a little bit of relief there. You don't have to stifle him. If I give you the names of Jacob Van Rooyen, Bailey Fritsch, Matt Jefferson, Cade Chandler, does that make you nervous at all?
I think Roo had a really good game against us. I believe it was last year. And I also think he played really well in that preseason hit out we had last month. I think that it's not necessarily about the forwards individually, but it's A, how they play as a team, and B, it's also a lot about the delivery and the synergy between the midfield and the forwards. And while both midfields are star-studded, like there's no doubt about that, the likes of Petrarca in particular, I mean, he's one of the best ball users in the competition, and I think the delivery that he would give to his forwards potentially is going to be better than the delivery that our midfielders, as good as they are, fail to give our forwards. So I think that could potentially be a really big factor for us, especially if the Dees can win the ball out of the centre of the ground. But Roo in particular is one that definitely makes me nervous. And Bailey Fritsch, when he's on. And all of them played really well in that pracky match we had last month. So you just never know how closely we were keeping our cards to our chest last month, and we had that hit out at Arden Street. I'd like to think we were keeping them pretty close, and that we'll be a lot more competitive and the game will be a lot closer on Sunday.
Yeah. Speaking of the centre of the ground, Tristan Sherry versus Max Gawn. That's an enthralling contest. Probably the best ruckman against maybe the upcoming best ruckman. Do you have confidence in Tristan, probably coming off, or arguably best on ground against the Dogs? Do you have confidence that he can derail Max Gawn's game?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing is that he sustained a lower leg injury, like a knock to his calf, I think it was, late in the fourth quarter against the Dogs, and he was moving a little bit slower than normal, but the club hasn't mentioned anything about it. I back him in to give Gawn a bit of hell on Sunday, to be honest, for sure.
Okay. Well, that's a wait and see. I'll always back Max Gawn. I think Max Gawn's ruck work, I think, is a little bit overrated. And around the ground, there's no question he helps back in defence. Like, no one sort of questions that. But his tap work's probably been criticised. He dominated against Lockie Keefe and we still lost clearances. So that's also a watch. Is Tristan a pretty good tap ruckman?
Yeah, he is. And he usually gets the better of his opponents as well. Particularly the synergy with him and the midfield is quite good as well. I would definitely back him in to not only win that ruck battle in the middle, but I'd also, around the ground, he's elevated his game in 2024 and he repeated that on Saturday night. His around the ground work was something we'd probably criticised and maybe was the reason why he hadn't been able to take that next step up to that sort of upper echelon of ruckman. But I think that's kind of all sorted now, and his form last season would, reflect that. So I've got no doubt that, I respect Max Gawn. He's been one of the best ruckmen in the competition for a very, very long time. But I think that Sherry's really coming for that crown for sure.
Fair enough. All right, I got a question for you. We've played each other 73 times, all time that is. What do you reckon the ledger is? Have a guess.
Ooh, 70 something, did you say?
73, yeah.
I reckon North are winning it.
That's correct.
Maybe like 40 something to 30 something.
It's close. It's 45 to 28 in favour of North.
Yeah.
Because you guys had a 17 game winning streak against Melbourne. It was from like 2006 to 2018. It was a long time. There was a couple
of games that we almost let it slip. But we managed to cling on by the skin of our teeth. And you know what? I don't think, off the top of my head, since that has been broken, I don't think we've won a game since.
That is correct. Yes, we have won. I don't know how many years in a row, but yeah, since 2018 to 20. Sorry, no, 2019 round 23. You beat Melbourne in Tassie, I believe.
Okay.
Alex Nabullen hit the post in the last minute. So
Okay,
since 2019.
Okay, wow. So I did think, yeah, I thought that it had been broken and then we hadn't been able to
Yeah.
get one back since. But there you go. It's just about on the D's terms in the last sort of 5, 6 years.
Yeah. Last year's game was one of the more torturous games I've watched as a Melbourne fan. We were in really bad form and we just held on at the end. We didn't score in the last quarter. Do you recall much of that?
Yes, I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember it like it was yesterday. I think the D's took a 5-goal lead into three-quarter time. And Cam Zurhaar popped up. He kicked 3 or 4 goals in the last quarter. And just absolutely, like, we were coming. And if that quarter had gone on for another 90 seconds, maybe even 30 seconds, because the ball ended up in our forward line that went out of bounds. It dribbled sort of out of bounds about 45 metres out on the boundary line. And then the siren went. And I think, yeah, we probably, if we had another minute, we probably would have won that game. But it's a game of seconds and inches, and it didn't fall our way. We had lost to Collingwood the week before by a point after holding that 9-goal lead. So it was a pretty dramatic and drastic fortnight for North fans. If Cam Zurhaar can do anything like what he did that night, and if he can just hit the scoreboard a little bit more than what he did against the Dogs, I think that would be a really, really welcome form from him.
Yeah. Marnie, I'm very big on cups, which is essentially like mutuals that have played for both teams.
Yeah.
So I want to play a little game.
Okay.
In 30 seconds, you need to tell me how many players you can name that have played for Melbourne and North Melbourne.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you if I can match it until somebody decides to challenge the other. So I'll let you start. How many do you reckon you can name in 30 seconds?
Maybe I can definitely name 3 off the top of my head. Maybe 4 or 5.
All right. Well, I reckon I can do 5. So
Okay.
do you reckon you can do 6?
I can try.
All right. I'll challenge you on that. I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll put the timer up here. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, so we've got Cam Pedersen, Ben Brown, Matt Jackdaw, Dom Tyson. And those are the only 4 I could think of straight away.
You got 15 seconds. I'll give you a clue. They're a coach in the league.
Why can't I've gone completely
Victorian coach.
blank. I've gone completely blank.
North Melbourne coach.
What, Clarko?
Yeah.
Did he play for both?
Yeah.
Wow, there you go. Fun fact,
Yeah.
I had no idea.
There you go. All right.
There you go.
I'll take the points. I don't
Gladly.
think...
I stumbled across the line.
So who did you say? You said Ben Brown.
Ben Brown, Matt Jackdaw. Matt Jack never played, but he was listed.
Yeah, but I'll count it. Yeah.
Dom Tyson. And who else did I say? I forgot.
Cam Pedersen.
Cam Pedersen. Yep.
I've got Corey Wagner.
Oh, that's right. You did. Wags.
And... Oh, I can't think of any others. Any current Melbourne players? I don't know.
It's very
Anyways.
rare that people leave North and
Yeah.
go to, like, another club, to be honest.
Yeah, I was very tempted to like write down names and cheat, but I was fair. If you had challenged me, I didn't do any homework, so yeah,
Hey, it's not a bad list between the two of us.
yeah, it's pretty good. Marnie, you tell me why and where North Melbourne can beat the Dees on Sunday.
Probably in the middle of the ground, I think, is going to be where, and it's so cliche, where that's where the game is won and lost. But for North, yes, our midfield is star-studded, but it's a very attacking midfield. Like, the only defensive midfielder essentially we have in there is Will Phillips, and he isn't getting heaps of game time, and he got subbed off, so I don't know what's going on there. Unless they decide to bring Finn O'Sullivan into the midfield. He played in defence last week. He was excellent. So whether they decide to do that or not, again, you just have to sort of wait and see. That, I think, where the ball is going to be won. The game, is going to be won. The other thing for us is that our forward line, with the addition of Jack Darling, just looks so dangerous. We look so potent. It allows the likes of a Cam Zurha and a Paul Curtis to not have to match up on the second best key defender for the opposition, and it actually lets them off the chain a little bit. They don't have to play tall. They can play more sort of true to themselves. Cam Zurha was really good on Saturday night, but he kicked 1 goal 4 and 1 on the full. So he's dangerous. He's getting himself in the right positions. His work rate's really good. He's just not finishing. So if he can, even if he can convert an extra 1 or 2, that could be the difference as well, where the game's won and lost. So I think for me, that's probably where I see the 2 big standouts for North. But God help us if it goes quickly the other way, because we don't have many answers defensively.
Yeah, I'll give my rebuttal. I agree. I think you can match it around stoppage and clearance, but Melbourne kicked 11 goals in the wet against arguably the best backline, the Giants. I think with no Archer, no Logue, Combins touch and go, I think that's where we're going to get the upper hand, is our forwards against your defence. So I think we'll kick away, and if we do, we'll win comfortably. If you guys take it deep against us, we're always going to be vulnerable because we just can't seem to close out games. But I wish you the best of luck on Sunday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on the show, Oppo Previews. All the fans, get to Marvel. I'm not sure the Dees fans like to go to Marvel, but get there. Any North Melbourne fans, go sub to Kanga TV, go follow on Instagram. Thank you, Marnie, very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Chase. It's a pleasure.
No worries. Thank you, and go Dees.